Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about improvising over a 2-5-1 chord progression in a minor key. If you enjoy these videos and you find them helpful, I'd be really grateful if you could give them a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so far, if you could subscribe to the channel. Also, I really like any comments that you might have to make or questions, and all these things do help to get the channel noticed. Okay, so in the introduction, I played 3 examples of a line over a 2-5-1 chord progression in the key of C minor. The chords in C minor are D minor 7 flat 5 or D half diminished 7th. Notes are D, F, A flat and C, G7, G, B, D and F. Now, a C tonic minor is not a C minor 7. It's either a C minor 6 or a C minor with a major 7. So that's a C minor triad with B rather than B flat. When you're improvising in a minor key, it's important to remember that there are 3 different types of minor scale. There's the natural minor. So in the case of C, that sounds like this. It contains all the same notes as the relative major scale, E flat major. And you can think of it as simply the Aeolian mode of E flat major. Aeolian mode means when you play a major scale that's starting on the 6th note of that scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The harmonic minor is almost the same, but the 7th, in this case B flat, is raised 1 semitone to B natural. The melodic minor scale is different ascending to descending. So on the way up, it's almost the same as the major scale, C major. The melodic minor ascending just as an E flat rather than E natural. Coming back down, you revert to the notes of the natural minor scale. Now, because there are 3 types of minor scale, that widens the choice of scales to use, particularly on the dominant 7th chord. In lesson 7, I talked about improvising over a minor 7 flat 5 chord, and I explained how you could use a B flat dominant 7th bebop scale over a D minor 7 flat 5 chord. And in lesson 10, I talked about the use of diminished, whole tone and altered scales over a dominant 7th chord. I've put links to both these lessons in the description below, and I've also put a link to the playlist of all the videos in this series so far. There's a couple of things that you have to remember about dominant 7th chords. First of all, G7 is the dominant 7th in C major and in C minor. It is the same chord. The other thing is that the dominant 7th lends itself to altering notes a lot more than other chords do. You can lower the 9th by a semitone, so that's G7. The 9th is A. If you play A flat, you have what we call a flattened 9th. You can also raise it a semitone to B flat, and we call that the sharpened 9th. The D, the 5th of the chord, can be lowered a semitone, and that's the flattened 5th. And E, in a dominant 7th chord, we don't tend to call it the 6th. We think of it up there and count the letter names from G up to there, which is 13. So that's the 13th. You can lower that to the flattened 13th. You can also think of that as the sharpened 5th. And you can also think of the D flat as the sharpened 11th. It doesn't really matter which way you think of them. 3 of those altered notes, the E flat, A flat and the B flat, are found in the C natural minor scale. The remaining altered note, D flat, is found in a scale called a Lydian dominant scale, and I'm going to talk about that in another video. Now let's look at the scale that I used in lesson 7 over a D minor 7 flat 5 chord. I used this scale. It's a B flat dominant 7th bebop scale. It's a B flat mixolydian mode, but with one added note, the chromatic passing note A going in between the B flat and the A flat. Now you'll notice that that scale actually contains those 3 altered notes, E flat, A flat and B flat, that are in the C natural minor scale. And that's of course because B flat 7 is the dominant 7th in the key of E flat major, which is the relative major to C minor, and all the notes of the C natural minor scale come from the E flat major scale. So it follows that we can use that scale not only over D minor 7 flat 5, but over the G7. Let's check the notes out then against a G7 chord. So we've got B flat, that's the sharpened 9th, A is the 9th, A flat is the flattened 9th, G is the root, F is the 7th, E flat is the flattened 13th, and then D is the 5th. C we tend to call the 11th on a dominant chord rather than the 4th. And so all those notes work over a G7 chord. So let's look now at the 3 examples that I played at the beginning of this video. In the first one, I started off with, now from the D to the A flat, I'm just playing down the B flat dominant 7th bebop scale. When I get to the A flat, I am going down to F. So I'm jumping from one chord note to another chord note. Of course, at any point, if you land on a chord note, you can jump to another chord note. And then I go back up 2 notes of that scale. And then I go on to B flat over a G7 chord. And then once again, I go into the B flat dominant 7th bebop scale. From the B flat down to the F, and then I jump from the F, which is the 7th of G7, down to the 3rd, another chord note, and then I just come back up with a little arpeggio, and then finish with a typical bebop ending. In the second example, I start off with again the B flat dominant 7th bebop scale. This time I'm going up rather than down. I start on D. I get to the A flat, just do a little U-turn back to G, then back to A flat again. And then once again, I'm landing on the B flat on the G7 chord. I then play part of the B flat dominant 7th bebop scale again. Once again, I'm playing the same notes there as in the first example, but then I finish off with an arpeggio, and it's the diminished 7th arpeggio, including the flat 9th. And then another typical bebop ending there. I'm going to the 3rd of C minor 7, just go up a step, and then back down. Okay, let's look at the third example. I started off on A flat, the 5th of D half diminished 7th, went down the B flat dominant 7th bebop scale until I got to D, and then I just came up by playing an arpeggio, just simply root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. That leads me nicely to B, the 3rd of G7. And then I didn't use the bebop scale here, I just played arpeggios, 3rd, 5th, 7th, flat and 9th. That makes a diminished 7th arpeggio, dropped a semitone to G, jumped back to the 3rd, back up, 5th, 7th, and that leads me nicely to E flat on the C minor chord. Hope you found that useful. Do remember that a really important part of learning the bebop language is to listen to the jazz greats playing bebop as much as you can, and possibly try transcribing some solos, or at least look and listen to solos that somebody else has transcribed. There's lots and lots of transcribed solos on YouTube that you can listen to. You gain so much from really careful listening, best with headphones on, and really try and absorb the language. Okay, see you in the next video. Thank you.